Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each here at MMA Junkie, we take a quick spin through the biggest headlines in the sport. This week, we're joined by the MMA Junkie radio crew of Gorgeous George and Goes in Las Vegas, as well as Fair Hanoun from all the way over in Egypt. So let's get straight to it. Crew, the buzz from UFC 261 continues after what was an absolutely incredible event in Jacksonville. So with a little time to soak it all in, here's my question to you. Out of the UFC champions that walked out of there, Kamaru Usman, Rose Namajunas, and Valentina Shevchenko, which performance impressed you the most? Let's put 2 minutes on the clock, and let's start with you, Farah.
I gotta go with Rose Namajunas, even though the Kamaru's knockout over Jorge was spectacular and unexpected. I gotta go with Rose Namajunas. She came in as a betting underdog. A lot of people questioned her mentality and whether she was ready to be champion again. And to go against Zhang Weili, who just had that incredible war with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and do that to her, like stop her. I mean, she looked so durable in that fight with Joanna going through that 5-round war. But for Rose to come out there and do that to her, just showing how skilled she is, and to win that, she became the first 2-time champion, I believe, in women's MMA in the UFC, excuse me. So just to do that to Zhang Weili, I don't know if anyone expected it to be such a flawless performance like that. So while Kamaru's knockout over Jorge was spectacular, I'm just so impressed with Rose Namajunas. How about you, Goz?
I'm going to go with Valentina Shevchenko. And surprisingly, she's the one that didn't get the bonus, but I feel like she has just been so tough throughout the years. And this fight before, you finally saw a little bit of, she lost a round and you thought maybe she didn't come back from that injury completely. But in this fight, she pulled it all together and she ragdolled a former champion, made her look really bad in this fight. And I'm not so sure it's not anything against Jessica Andrade, her not being prepared. It's how good Valentina Shevchenko is. So she was able to show off her striking, her grappling. She didn't get the bonus, but man, did she just lay the foundation for, she's going to be one of the Mount Rushmore girls. How about what do you think, George?
Well, there's no wrong answer because all three performed brilliantly, so I'll obviously add to it by talking about Kamaru Usman. I think a lot of us had said, close quarters on the ground, Usman, that's his strength. Jorge with the beautiful hands that he throws, his one-punch power, that's his strength. If he can get that going. But, man, not only was it the knockout punch, but he delivered a couple nice right hands even prior to that just set it up. Kamaru Usman looked spectacular, and now he's one of the pound-for-pound top 3 guys in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible when you think about it. I mean, I didn't even tell you guys to all take different selections, but that's how good the event was, right? How great the performances was, and everybody had a different case to make. So let's take the flip side of that, right? Now, the Florida crowd, they were certainly hoping for better from Jorge Masvidal. Gamebred apologized to the Florida crowd, said he's sorry for what happened there. Now, look, he's clearly one of the most popular figures in the sport, but the question is, where does he go from here? I mean, is his time at the top of the sport that he's enjoyed for the last couple of years, is that over now? Or do you see big matchups that are still there to be made for him? Let's put 2 minutes on the clock again. Goes, you get it started.
Jorge Masvidal has done a lot of what Conor McGregor has done in his career, in the sense that he has a huge following. A lot of people want to see him fight, and I'm not so sure they really care who's on the other side. They just want to see him perform. But the one thing that he has done is he's got a lot of unfinished business out there, okay? How many people have eaten a 3-piece and a soda and stayed full for the rest of their life? There has to be a conclusion to that. That fight will always be there for him. Leon Edwards will always be there. And if Colby Covington gets a win against Kamaru Usman, he took some rounds from him. That is possible. Jorge could possibly turn things around and maybe even get another title shot down the road. But for now, I think what he really needs to do is just rest, not just mentally and physically, but that the ego a little bit took a shot. I think he needs some rest. How about you, George?
Yeah, exactly. So as a title contender, I think right now he's got to go out and grab some wins. But Goes explained the relevancy of why he can get there quickly with those 2 names. That was perfect. But let's not forget, he's the BMF. He's got that belt, and he's always been a street swagger guy. He's always going to rock that. So, I'm sure Farah can fill in on a few of those, but I'll give you a couple. Either of the Diaz brothers, because if you got beef with one, you got beef with the other. And right now, Nick Diaz, he's looking to fight someone. Well, why not with Masvidal? And if things don't go well for Nate, next month or whatever, or maybe even if they do, and he's not ready for a title shot, then run that one back.
I agree with the both of you. I think the popularity of Jorge is similar as to of Nate Diaz. I mean, look at Nate Diaz now. He's fighting Leon Edwards. Who would have expected that, right? That's what happens when you have a big name, when you're popular and you bring the eyes in. And I think Jorge Masvidal, maybe his title hopes are dead for now, but at the end of the day, he's still one of the biggest names. He's still one of the biggest draws in a lot of fights out there, like you guys mentioned, whether it's Leon Edwards, the grudge match with Colby Covington, win or lose for Covington. And then you've got the rematch with Nate Diaz that's out there as well. So I think, Jorge is a fan favorite. He's popular. He's one of the bigger draws. Big fights are out there for him regardless. And when you're one of the biggest draws in the sport, you tend to get more opportunities than the rest. And like I said, we saw that with Nate Diaz getting the Leon Edwards fight because people are going to want to fight you, right? So while the title hopes may not be alive right now, I still think there are big fights for him on the horizon.
Yeah, it's kind of a bizarrely enviable position for Jorge Masvidal, right? I mean, his title shot, may be over. What if Colby wins the title? Then could you do it anyway? I mean, who knows? You got big fights out there, guys. All right, well, let's talk about, amazing action inside the cage. There was some action outside of it as well. We almost got Daniel Cormier out of retirement to come fight Jake Paul. Now, look, Jake Paul is a guy that everybody loves to hate, but he kind of flipped the script a little bit, right? He came out and called out Dana White, said, let's get these UFC fighters some better pay. So I got to ask you, in the world of MMA, Jake Paul, is this man public enemy number one, which I'm sure everybody watching this is going to say he is, and why are we even talking about this crazy guy? Or can he actually get something positive done for the fighters in the UFC? Is he the savior that they didn't know was coming? Let's put 2 minutes on the clock. Start with you, George.
I'm with you guys. I don't want to talk about him much more, but we can't get away from him, and maybe for good reason. But listen, he's had success at YouTube. He's doing his thing as boxing. He's got the spotlight on him. So you got to give him that, right? And so, don't step over the line, though. You almost got slapped this weekend. However, what he said about, batting on behalf of MMA fighters, comparing the purses. Look, it's two different sports, two different ways of, garnering revenue, for MMA and boxing. But either way, bringing a spotlight to it, I'm sure a lot of MMA fighters probably gave him that cyber fist bump, fans as well. So it's always a good thing when we can, come up with ways to get the fighters paid better. How about you, Fada? What do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say he's got to be public enemy number one because I don't think anybody really likes him, and he knows he's annoying and he's very good at it. But at the end of the day, like even though it didn't go Ben Askren's way, he put a massive spotlight on Ben Askren, and there are a lot of people who may have never watched Ben got to see him compete. So in a way, he's almost putting a spotlight on MMA fighters, as bad as that sounds, especially from kind of like the casual fans and stuff like that. And people are irked by him, but yet they keep engaging with him. I mean, I don't know who let him in Jacksonville. Maybe he bought a ticket, maybe not. But I don't know how he was in there. But like at the end of the day, people seem to want to confront him. I mean, he's poking at them and they're responding. So while they may say they're irked by him, they kind of, I mean, why go talk to him, right? So they seem to be entertained by engaging with him in one shape or form. So I don't know, in a weird way, he is kind of putting the spotlight on MMA and the UFC, even if it's in a bad way. But at the end of the day, they are getting eyes on them. And that's one thing that's been always important to fighters, that they don't get the attention they deserve. So weirdly enough, he's kind of doing that for them.
It's pretty wild when you think about it. I mean, entire arena, he captured their attention. I mean, yes, they were all screaming, F you, Jake Paul, but they were all screaming at Jake Paul while there's fights going on. They're worried about Jake Paul and not watching the fights. How crazy will it be if we look back in like 10 years and we say, how fighter pay changed? We all have Jake Paul to thank for it, man. It'll be crazy, right? All right, guys. Well, we talk about Jake Paul. We also had another important sighting there. Nick Diaz was cage sighted. Anytime you have a Nick Diaz sighting, you got to talk about it right now. I'm going to admit, I get a little wary anytime we talk about Nick Diaz being back, because I feel like we've been talking about it for a long time. But Dana White's comments seemed positive. He said he's ready to go. So it's time to put on the matchmaker hat. Give me a realistic matchup for you that sounds perfect to you for Nick Diaz apparently impending return. Fada, let's put 2 minutes on the clock and start with you.
Diaz 1-2-5. That's the thing that people have been saying for so long. Why not run it back with Carlos Condit? I mean, especially now that Carlos has looked better than he has in years. He's coming off back-to-back wins against Court McGee and Matt Brown, and he looked so good. He looked like the old natural-born killer against Court McGee. So why not? Why not run things back with Carlos? He's a big name. So is Diaz. I know Dana had mentioned Hamza Chimaev. Please no. I mean, that's really not the fight that I personally want to see. I can understand why Hamza would go after it, but if he's going to go in there, shoot for the takedown and try for the ground and pound, I don't want to see Nick Diaz against a wrestler. I think Carlos Condit is a great opponent for him. There's history there. People have been talking about that first fight for so long. Some people feel like Diaz should have won it. So why not? I mean, especially with where Carlos is at his career right now, I think it's a perfect timing. How about you guys?
I really like the Condit matchup, and that probably would have been my answer up until this past weekend. Now, I feel like, hey, Jorge Masvidal, he needs some time off. I don't think Nick Diaz is going to jump in right now, but we could probably make that fight. And there's a way that we sell these Nick Diaz fights. A lot of them come with some kind of beef, right? Some kind of quarrel. Hey, he has a chance to avenge his brother's loss. That is your storyline right there. Those two guys, two BMFs standing in front of each other. Who is not going to order that pay-per-view? Who is not going to watch that? What do you think, George?
Perfect matchups. I love them both. But I was thinking about it. Would the Diaz brothers want to risk losing to the same guy in BMF matchups? Ooh, some of that street swag might go out the window. You know what? I'm gonna go a little bit even older school than the one that Fada gave us, because I was at that Condit Diaz one. How about Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz? Now it drives both of them nuts when you bring it up. Even the guy that lost, Lawler, he's like, it happened already. But still, I think now's a good time to bring a couple OGs back together and run that one back if you can't get it together with the other guys. But I don't think there's a bad answer yet again when it involves Nick Diaz.
Yeah, all three of those are exciting fights, and you know what that means. He's going to fight Khamzat Chimaev. It's another busy week in the sport, and one championship, PFL, UFC are all in action. Now, look, Online Song versus Rainer DeRitter, Rory McDonald versus Curtis Millender, Dominic Reyes versus Yuri Prochazka. Those are all really big fights. I mean, they are great main events, but let's get one fight from each card that fans shouldn't miss. Let me know what your pick is for something maybe flying a little under radar that people should tune in on this busy, busy week of MMA. Let's put 2 minutes on the clock again, and let's start with you, Ghost.
Listen, anytime you get to see An Lasong fight, I love watching that kid fight. He's so tough, and he's made so many adjustments in his life and his training. But when you look at the things that he's done here, this fight has a little bit of a storyline in it, in the sense that it has a rematch. So we get to see him right that wrong, possibly. There's a huge spotlight on him right now because they're on TNT. They're on a big platform. But also, too, when you look at the things that are going on in Myanmar, he's taken that to heart. And that's where he's from. And I know he would love nothing more than to have that big spotlight on him and speak to the president. That's something that he did in an interview with us. So he's got a lot on the line on this fight. And when those things happen, it usually turns out you're going to see a really good fight. He always delivers. So that's my pick. How about you, George?
PFL Week 2, Emiliano Sordi, who had a perfect campaign in 2019, all 5 finishes, and I believe 4 of them were of the striking. Well, guess who wants to strike with him? Chris Comosi, who is a former UFC veteran, but then he went over there and spent some time in glory. I think that could be a very exciting fight. Fada, complete the parlay here. I'm listening. I want to do a 3-teamer.
I'm going to go with Saturday's UFC on ESPN 23 co-main event between Giga Chikadze and Cub Swanson. I mean, Cub Swanson's never in a boring fight, and I like Giga's confidence. We saw his interview with Mike Vaughn where he was talking about being the best striker in the UFC, or maybe in MMA, he said. So he's coming in with a lot of confidence. He got his first finish in the UFC against Jamie Simmons. Cub is never in a boring fight, and I almost feel like Cub's style is going to bring the best out of Giga, because we've seen Cub, whether he's fighting a contender or a prospect like he did with Kron Gracie, or even a fight against Artem Lobov where people expected him to win, he brings the fire every single time. He'll go out there and put it all on the line. So I think the fight with Giga is going to be a stand-up war. It's going to be exciting, and Cub's style is going to bring the best out of Giga, and I just feel like we're in for a treat.
Yeah, good picks all the way around. Goes, you made such a great case for social change. I didn't want to tell you didn't listen to my question whatsoever. So I'll give you a chance for redemption. Anything else on the undercard people should be paying attention to?
Well, I mean, listen, when you see an opportunity at Eddie Alvarez too, right? I mean, come on, you get to see a little bit of redemption of what happened in that last fight and see him get things back in control and possibly get another rematch here. So I would definitely not want to miss a guy like that.
Nice. So first ever on Spinning Back Clique. You mess up so bad, you get a second shot at it. That's how we do it here. But it was still a nice message. As you said, Online Song, man, sometimes you're fighting for more than just what's happening in the cage, right? And he's been trying to bring some attention to a very, very important matter over there. So for that reason, sir, I won't bust your chops too much. So you got it. Guys, appreciate the time as always. As we said, a very, very busy week in MMA. Of course, we will have it all covered, and we'll talk about all the fallout next week on Spinning Back Clique.